Dedicated to Nishmas Rachaleya Bas Rav Chaim Tzvi. Okay, I wanted to move on to a new Melacha, and we'll tackle the Melacha of Kosher, tying knots on Shabbos. And as we'll see as we go through the sugya of tying knots on Shabbos, the Melacha is really divided. There's a Melacha of tying knots, that's one of the 39 Melachos, not tying kosher. And the flip side, Matir, untying knots, is also one of the Lamates Melachos. And as we will see, any knot that you're not allowed to tie on Shabbos, you're also not allowed to untie on Shabbos. So we'll really be able to cover in one sugya both two melachos, the melacha of tying knots on Shabbos and untying knots on Shabbos. So what is the source? Where was knot tying done in the Mishkan? Where did they have to tie knots for the Mishkan? This is a Gemara in Masechet Shabbos Daf Ayin Daled Amud Beis, and the Gemara tells us as follows: Kshira b'Mishkan heichan havoi. Where was kosher done in the Mishkan? Amar Rava, Shekein koshin b'yasedos oalim. So Rava suggests the first possibility that they were kosher, they tied, as you make any tent. When they made the Olel Moed, made the tent, they had to tie down the ends of the tent. Shekein koshin b'yasedos oalim. The pegs had to be tied down. So the Gemara says that cannot be the case. Very important comment. The Gemara says that cannot be the source of kosher in the Mishkan. After all, hahu kosher almanas lahatir. There, they were never in a given place permanently in the Mishkan. They knew they were going to be traveling ultimately to Eretz Yisrael, and therefore that was not a permanent act of kshira. That was kosher almanas lahatir, kosher in order to go ahead and be matir, to be untied. And says Rashi, "V'chiagavna patrino lelakaman ditznan kol kesher she'ena shal kiyama ein chayavin alav." Apparently, for the Melacha of Kosher to be chal, to have an isur d'oraisa of kosher, you require a permanent act of kshira kesher shal kiyama, and therefore, by the Mishkan, it was inherently temporary, almanas lahatir. So Rava's solution of the source of kosher in the Mishkan is rejected. Elo amar Abaye, shechein orge yirios, shenifsaka lahem nema, kosher nosa. So the second possibility is, sometimes they had the yirios, the curtains in the Mishkan, so sometimes strings would become disattached. They'd start to fray. So to go ahead, they'd go ahead and retie them to prevent that kind of fraying. So says Abaye, that's where kosher was done in the Mishkan, never to be undone. That's a kesher shel kayama. So the Gemara seems to say, Rava retorts back, Tiratz ta kosher. That's all fine and good, you just showed me kosher in the Mishkan, but matir, ma'ika laneimar. But we're looking for a brother-sister set of malacha. We're looking for the malacha not just of kosher, but also of matir, untying. Where exactly was that done? So the Gemara finally concludes, Ela amar Rava, I'll tell you where kosher was done in the Mishkan. Ela amar Rava v'tim Ravi Loi shechein tzidei chilazon kosher umatirin. The tire, when they went ahead, that tzidei chilazon, the hunters who would trap the chilazon, the snail from which they used to get the tcheles, so they had to tie and untie. Where did they tie and untie? So Rashi here explains that the tzidei chilazon would have to tie and untie. How so? When they wanted to go ahead and catch these snails, they had nets. And the nets would be made with a lot of strings, rishatot, and they'd have to, sometimes they'd need a very large net. So they take these multiple nets and tie them all together. And sometimes they didn't need such a large net. They needed a smaller net, so they'd have to untie. When they tied the net, it was never intended to be undone. They never knew when they would untie it to make it smaller, where exactly they'd have to do so. And therefore the act of kosher was a kshira shel kayama. And similarly, the act of matir was also was also on a kesher that is shel kayama, and lemaskanas haGemara, this is the ultimate source, which teaches us a very, very important idea. Number one, interesting, is that the actual tying was not done for the binyan hamishkan, was done in order to collect the chilazon, and by trapping the chilazon, but that also is part of the preparation for binyan hamishkan, and we see very clearly from this Gemara that kosher, in order to be chayiv, must be a knot that is meant to be a permanent knot, a kesher kayama. Similarly, you're only going to be chayiv for untying a knot by untying a kesher shel kayama. This idea of kesher kayama is clearly echoed in the Mishnah in the beginning of Perek Elu Ksharim in Masechet Shabbos, Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. The Mishnah tells us, "Ve'elu ksharim shechayavin aleim." These are the knots that if you tie them on Shabbos, it's an iser d'oraisa. Kesher hagamolim ve'kesher saponim. If you tie the camel driver's knot or the sailor's knot, it's an iser d'oraisa.